Started. Welcome to Monday Night Reading. Monday Night Reading is a series that we created because nonfiction authors do not have as many opportunities to read from their books as fiction authors do. So we said, let's change that and let's highlight them. And now it's become a milestone, a tradition among our top 3 authors community. And tonight, we are so honored to have Dr. Amy Climer here to read from her book, Deliberate Creative Teams. If you got it, show it. Yay! Woohoo! Oh, you got it on your phone. I love it, KP. That's awesome. How Monday Night Reading works is Amy has some excerpts to read. In between, I'll ask Amy some questions. Please keep your eye on the chat. If you're a regular here, you know what we like to do is put in the chat when something resonates with us, a line, a thought, an insight, and then we give the chat to Amy. So it's a wonderful gift, and it helps her to see what's really connecting with people and what she's sharing. You'll also, throughout the night, see Laura Stone will put some links in the chat, and also Sade Amhern. We'll put some links in the chat so that you can connect with Amy, but more importantly, so you can do 2 things. One, if you do not have a copy, if you can purchase a copy of Deliberate Creative Teams today, is what we were hoping you would do, if it's your budget. And 2, we want you to leave an honest review on Amazon. That Amazon reviews are hard to come by and they are currency. Right now, I checked before we got here, Amy's at 58 reviews. And so we want to get that number up. We need to get to 3 digits. Research shows that readers are more likely to purchase a book if there are at least 100 reviews. So we want to try and get as close to that as we possibly can. And on that note, I'll be sharing a little something cool that I'm going to do for that when we are toward the end of this reading. I want to let Laura introduce Amy, as is our tradition. Laura?
I would love to. Dr. Amy Climer is a thought leader in innovation, team development, and experiential learning. She uses research-based practices, tools, and techniques that teams can leverage to innovate on demand. Her clients include forward-thinking organizations such as the Mayo Clinic, the Department of Homeland Security, and the University of Wisconsin. Amy holds a Ph.D. in leadership and change from Antioch University. Her research led to the Deliberate Creative Team Scale, designed to measure the 3 critical dimensions of team creativity. Her TEDx talk, The Power of Deliberate Creative Teams, delves into her research and philosophies on innovation. Amy is also the host of the Deliberate Creative Podcast. I like the branding, Amy. She is the designer of Climer Cards, a creativity and team building tool used by thousands to deepen conversations and generate ideas. In recognition for her creative contributions, in 2016, she won the Karl Rhonke Creativity Award from the Association of Experiential Education. Amy is also an MC, and in 2022, emceed for the NSA Influence Conference. In addition to her professional work, Dr. Climer is a passionate outdoor enthusiast who takes fantastic pictures, I should say, leading wilderness leadership courses for Outward Bound. She, her wife, and daughter live in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'll share in the chat how you can stay connected with Amy. AJ?
Awesome. Okay, Amy. So before we get started, I always ask the same questions because this is what we do in Top 3 Book Workshop. For whom did you write the book?
This book is for business leaders who want their teams to be more innovative, but don't quite know where to start.
Okay, and what is your core message for those readers?
That innovation does not happen through magic or by chance. Innovation is systematic.
I love that. So good. That is tight and good. That is so good. And what is your promise of the book?
That by the end of the book, you will have a creative team who can innovate anytime they want.
So, can we just bow down to those book fundamentals? Just like, come on. Come on. So good.
Hey, it's only because of you, AJ.
No, it's not. But thank you for the shout out. By the way, I want to shout out It looks like Joey just got a copy. It looks like Kara got a copy. I'd love to see that. If you get a copy, please put it in the chat. We love to say thank you and shout you out. So, Amy, set it up. What's the first excerpt you're going to share with us today?
Okay, so the first excerpt is from chapter 1, and I think I should just jump in.
Yeah, just go for
There-
it. When you're done with that excerpt, then I'll ask you some questions.
All right. There is an intro before this, and I was debating intro or chapter 1, but um, I read the intro during my book launch 3 weeks ago, so I'm like, no, we're doing chapter 1 today. Okay, let me open the book. Chapter 1, Why You Need to Innovate Now. March 10th, 1973 was a good day for Frances for 2 reasons. She was getting married to Ron, and she did not have a headache. For the previous 15 years, Frances had suffered headaches that continued to grow in severity. Some days there was no pain. Other days were so bad she could only sit in a dark, quiet room for hours and stay very still. Back in high school, she had started seeing doctors to figure out what was causing the problem. Every single doctor dismissed her. They told her, just take it easy, decrease stress in her life. In 1961, during her freshman year of college, one doctor at a well-respected university hospital looked at her and said, if you are worried you have a brain tumor, you don't. Frances's frustration and pain grew to the point that she could barely cope. Finally, a few months after her and Ron's wedding, in a state of desperation, Frances and her parents drove a motorhome from Orlando, Florida to Rochester, Minnesota to visit Mayo Clinic, which had a worldwide reputation as one of the best hospitals. Filled with hope and trepidation, they traveled over 1,400 miles seeking answers. Mayo Clinic was opened in 1889 by the Sisters of St. Francis and Doctors William and Charles Mayo. From the beginning, their approach to medicine was different. They designed an environment that was open, collaborative, and dedicated to learning. Their drive to provide the best care led to continual innovation that influenced healthcare around the world. The focus was always on the patient, not about being right or about egos. Doctors with various specialties were assigned to a patient, and they consulted together to determine the diagnosis and treatment. Patients did not travel around the campus to the doctors. They stayed in one location, and doctors came to them. When Mayo Clinic doctors consulted on Frances's symptoms, they suspected she had a brain tumor. In 1973, testing for a brain tumor involved a myelogram. The patient is strapped onto a special table that rotates. Fluid is injected into their spine. As the table rotates, the fluid moves to different parts of their body. If the fluid hits a tumor, the patient experiences pain. When the fluid hit the back of Frances's skull, the pain was so intense that she vomited. The MRI machine had not yet been invented, but the EMI scanner had. It was the first machine to allow 3D views of the brain, and it would soon revolutionize medicine. In 1973, there were only 2 EMI scanners in the world. One was in the United Kingdom, where it had been invented, and the other was at Mayo Clinic. The EMI scanner had been at Mayo for a few weeks, and they wanted to test it on Frances. Later, when Frances was asked what it was like to be in the EMI scanner, she said, there was nothing to it. I just lay on a table in the dark. It wasn't painful at all. The results showed the same thing as the myelogram. There was a brain tumor. On July 19, 1973, Dr. Richard H. Miller, assisted by Dr. David Pipegrass, removed Frances's tumor. In the middle of the surgery, they tested the tumor for cancer. By 1906, 4,770 operations had already been performed at Mayo Clinic, more than at any hospital in the United States. As early as 1893, it had an impressive surgery success rate of 98%, and soon doctors from around the world traveled to the little town in Minnesota to learn from the Mayo brothers, who were continually looking at problems and devising new solutions. For instance, an early medical challenge the Mayo brothers struggled with was that when surgically removing a tumor, they would have to sew the patient back up without knowing if the tumor was cancerous. It might take weeks for the test to determine if cancer was present, and this could lead to a second or even third surgery, putting the patient at greater risk. To address this, in 1905, the Mayo brothers hired pathologist Lewis Wilson. His job was to figure out a new way to quickly test cells for cancer. Months later, after countless attempts, he had a solution. With his new technique, it only took 2 minutes to determine if cells were cancerous. That meant surgeons could remove a tumor and test it for cancer while a patient was still in surgery. The results would give them valuable information about their next steps while the patient was still under anesthesia. 7 decades later, doctors Miller and Pipegrass removed Francis's tumor and it was taken next door to the lab to test for cancer. The tumor was benign, but the tumor was about the size of a lemon. Taking it easy and decreasing stress would not have resolved Francis's massive headaches. 2 days after the surgery, Francis asked Dr. Miller if the surgery had been necessary. He said, "Yes, pretty soon you were going to go to sleep and not wake up." The surgery saved her life. 2 weeks later, Frances and her parents were back home in Orlando, and Frances was feeling well enough that she helped Ron pressure wash the roof of their house. Post-op recovery was going well. I am forever grateful to the Mayo Clinic because Frances and Ron later went on to have 3 kids. I was their first. As I write this book, my mom is still alive and well and had no long-term effects from the tumor. Without the removal of the tumor, my mom would have died long before I was born. It is because of Mayo's innovative approach to medicine that I exist. For me, innovation is personal. For Mayo Clinic, innovation has always been at the core of their identity. Today, it is listed as one of their top 8 values, and they practice it every day. Because of their innovative approach to medicine and their drive for improvement, they have saved millions of lives, and their inventions and discoveries have affected nearly every human on Earth. Today, Mayo employs 7,000 active inventors, and they just broke $1 billion in revenue from their inventions. Mayo Clinic is a great example of an organization that focuses on identifying problems and finding creative solutions. How can an organization like Mayo Clinic continue to innovate for over a century? How do they produce groundbreaking results and become the sought-after research when no one else can help? How have they been able to save millions of lives through their innovation? Mayo Clinic understands that innovation is a system. Specific strategies, techniques, and tools make up the system for creativity. Creativity and innovation emerge by following a deliberate process, a system that allows individuals and teams to identify challenges, generate new ideas, develop those ideas, and then test and implement them. You might not be working in a field that focuses on life-saving work. Whether you are in accounting, engineering, education, or zoology, innovation can lead to positive change. Innovation is about solving real problems and leads to real solutions for real people. You might not be trying to invent a new way to test cancer cells or invent a product that changes the world, but even small changes can make a big difference. Maybe you want to change the communication practices in your restaurant or create a smoother, more efficient experience for staff and customers. Lead your office to be more inclusive and open so staff can collaborate at a deeper level. Design a system to keep students safe from gun violence at school. Create a company that produces locally made, sustainable clothing at scale while still earning a profit. Decrease waste within your company to save money and the environment. Or eradicate biased hiring practices and pay inequities at your organization. In all of these examples and a myriad of others, there is no one right answer or one known solution. Solving problems without a known solution requires creativity. If you want to be creative, you need to follow a deliberate system. In the last few years, I've had the privilege to work with many clients, including Mayo Clinic, and teach them the Deliberate Creative Team system. The system is based on my original research on creativity in teams and builds on decades of research and practical experiences from other creativity experts. In this book, I will teach you the same system. You will learn how to guide your team to be innovative whenever you need.
No, perfect. No, perfect. Uh, do you notice how she told this riveting story? We're worried about Frances. Then she did the big reveal about that's my mom. I wouldn't be here without that. But then also tied it back to I work with Mayo Clinic. That just study that. So good. Are you getting a good response to that story?
I am, yes.
it's really meaningful to me because when you talk about it and you specifically talk about the values and the directives at Mayo and that innovation is key there. And I don't know if I told you that my wife wouldn't be here today without that. Did I tell you that?
Did, yeah.
Yeah, because she was the first baby to get this certain brain surgery, first infant at Mayo to get it, and wouldn't be alive today without Mayo. So there's a million stories like that about Mayo, right?
There are. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So I can't wait for you to read the chat because and I wish you could have seen everybody's faces when the reveal happened. Yeah, it was great. So you and I have had a lot of conversations about creativity and we talked about what most people believe, that people are either creative or they're not. They kind of have that thing or they don't. And so, that means you need the right mix of the creative people who are naturally so in order to innovate, and that these are sort of prevailing wisdom. And I know you disagree with that, hence your core message. But can you tell me more about why do we think that and why it's so wrong?
I think there's two reasons why we think, some people are creative and some aren't. I think one reason is that we have a misunderstanding of what creativity actually is. So many people, I mean, I've been asking this question for at least 20 years, and I'll ask people, just in conversation, do you think you're creative? And they'll say, oh, no, no, I don't know how to draw. And so there's the reveal. It's like, okay, wait, hold on a second. I was asking if you're creative and you're answering something completely different. But there's this confusion that creativity is about your ability to draw when it is not. Um, and the definition that I share in the book is that creativity is novelty that is valuable. So novelty meaning original, unique, different, new, and valuable could be financially valuable, it could be emotionally, aesthetically valuable, like whatever it is in the context. And that's it. That's all creativity is. And most people, most of us have the ability to solve problems in unique ways. And that's what creativity is. But I think the reason we don't we also think we're not creative is in addition to like the messed up, just like the missed definition, is that at least if you grew up in mainstream US, you have been taught from about kindergarten till through high school that you're seeking one right answer. And there is no right answer for nearly anything. And mostly we're taught take this multiple choice test and pick, A, B, or C, and then you become an adult. And like, when have you ever had a boss say, hey, I need you to solve this problem. There's only one right answer. Please pick from one of these three. It just never happens, right? Like as adults, we need to figure out unique solutions. And so there's this mismatch and this confusion that we haven't been taught how to be creative, and creativity is a skill that can be taught, but we've just missed out on that. At least most of us have.
It's so liberating. Do you feel like people, like do you get resistance when you say any team can be creative and any team can innovate?
I surprisingly not really. I think when I lay it out that way, it's almost I think like it feels liberating. People are like, "Oh, okay, I don't have to be able to draw. Forget that." I mean, what I say is if you want to learn how to draw, that's a skill too that we also don't teach in the US. Some countries do teach that. And you can go learn it. There's some great lessons out there, great teachers. But forget it if you don't care, and let's focus on this other stuff. And most people, I think they realize, oh, I have actually been creative in ways I didn't realize. So I think it's kind of liberating.
Yeah. So you taught me that with the right systems, a team can innovate on demand.
Mm.
So meaning you don't need the right set of circumstances, you don't need the right configuration of people, you don't need a super long window. Like tell me that just seems so like how can you innovate on demand?
I think so. The way I teach this system in the book, and there's this Venn diagram which I'll talk about a bit in the next segment that I read. But one of the circles is team creative process, and within that, there's another model that's in the book as well called creative problem solving. And it's this four-stage process that everybody on this call has been through before because it's based on how we as humans naturally, get creative. And so, and we do this in your class, AJ. So it's the four stages are clarify, ideate, develop, implement. So you clarify, what is it you're trying to do? Who is this book for? What are you trying to write? And then you generate all these ideas and you have us write these lists of like, what are the questions your readers have, or what are the topics you want to talk about? And then you take those ideas and you develop them further. Some of them get trashed, some of them get, built out more. And then finally you implement it. And then hopefully you have a physical product at the end. So we've all done this. But here's the problem. All of us also have a preference for one or more of those areas. And there's a measure you can take, it's called the foresight thinking profile. And I use this with my clients a lot. So in the four stages, I would be really happy to skip clarify and jump right into ideate. But then if I do that, like, what am I generating ideas for? Like, you have to clarify first, right? So I love ideating and I love implementing, but clarify and develop are harder for me. It doesn't mean I can't do them. It just means that if I don't understand the system, my tendency is to skip them. And so if I'm following this system, then it forces me to slow down and realize, oh, right, maybe the reason it took me so long to write my book is because didn't clarify enough, right? Or I didn't spend enough time later developing those ideas. And so the system kind of forces us to go through the whole process, which then produces real, innovative results.
Wow. So then what do you do if you don't love that part of it? Is it you don't like clarify, so you just what, make yourself do it or
I mean, to some degree, I think there's a couple approaches. One can be if you're in a team environment, great. I don't like clarifying, but my teammate does. Sweet. What do I need to do to help you clarify? And how can we like work well together? It also means, though, that you can end up really butting heads if you don't understand those differences about each other and don't honor that. But when you're in an individual situation, like writing a book, there is a certain amount that you're probably just going to have to slow down and go through the parts you don't like. But hopefully you can do that with people that do like that and they can help you. Like for me, I'm not always the best at coming up with those clarifying questions, especially about myself, right? Or about my own stuff. Like I can ask other people them, and so that's where I feel like you've helped AJ, like you're asking us those questions. That's like forcing us to stay in that stage, which is really helpful.
Okay. So you're like a team of one when you're writing the book.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Well, then it's, I mean, I, that's hard to be a
Well, and
team of one.
that's why you have community here. So
Yeah.
get through all the hard part.
I can't believe we talked about your book for so long and we never talked about a team of one.
That's true. We
Yeah.
never did.
Well, anyway, I just think everything you do is brilliant. I could just listen to you talk. I could just pelt you with questions, but I really want people to get to hear more of your book. So let's hear the next excerpt, and if you could set it up for us.
Sure. All right. So this is going to be from chapter 2. Let me get to the right section. Okay. So this section is called the deliberate creative team system. So I'm going to like jump ahead, we fast forward, couple dozen pages. Um, yeah. All right, here we go. This one's maybe a little bit shorter than that last one. The deliberate creative team system. Hold on, let me open my book so you can see. The deliberate creative team system. I was recently facilitating an ideation session for the advancement team of the North Carolina Outward Bound School. The 7 staff members were focusing on how they might be more innovative in their development and marketing in the coming year. I taught them the concept that creativity is a skill that can be and must be nurtured just like any other skill. As we talked about this, Walker, Associate Director of Advancement Operations, had a confused, pensive look on his face. I asked, Walker, what are you thinking about? He said, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. Around what? I asked. That creativity is a skill. I chuckled. The concept can be a bit mind-boggling at first, especially if you have always looked at other people as creative and not considered yourself as such. I find it freeing and exciting to know that if I want to be more creative, I just need to work at it. If I want my team to be more creative, then we need to work at it together. Later, Walker and I talked further, and he said that beyond understanding that creativity is a skill, the idea of practicing creativity was new to him. Skills are something we can practice to improve. In 2009, a group of researchers conducted a meta-analysis of 104 studies to determine what factors impact team creativity. They reported in the Journal of Applied Psychology that the process in which teams engage and the relationships with each other are more important to their creative output than specific traits or backgrounds they bring to the group. This is good news. This means that teams can influence their creativity. A team's ability to innovate is not based on team members' level of education or their personalities. Instead, it is based on how the team members work together, on their interactions and behaviors within the group, and on the process they use to innovate. Knowing that the input from team members and their interactions with each other were the most important aspects of team creativity, I wanted to dig deeper. What more specifically leads to team innovation? Building on the previous 70 years of research, I conducted a study to look at what teams need to be creative together. After scouring the research, I identified the most likely elements of team creativity. I then crafted a survey, and over 830 people shared information about their teams. I worked in depth with 3 teams to further test the results. The outcome was an assessment tool called the Deliberate Creative Team Scale, which was tested for validity and reliability. The assessment turned out to be quite robust and will measure your team's behaviors related to creativity. I've since used the scale with many teams. The results of the research show that teams need 3 factors to be creative: team purpose, team dynamics, and team creative process. These factors are team competencies that form the deliberate creative team system. If your team can build their skills and strengths in these 3 areas, the results will be astounding. They will become a deliberate creative team at the sustainable or scalable level, which I had explained earlier. Your team will be able to innovate on demand. And if anyone wants a visual, this is the system I've put up on my video feed.
Look at you with all your things. The thing.
Ecamm Live.
Um, so you talk about a culture of creativity, and I understand those words, culture and creativity, but what do you mean by that, and how do you cultivate it?
I'm trying to define it without using the words.
Oh, you can use the words. I just
Well, I was thinking a culture of creativity is a culture that cultivates creativity. That's not very
okay,
helpful.
but how, why is it important, and how do we do it, and why does it matter?
Well, I think the reason it's important is I think because there's like so many layers to just our human psyche and all the things that we need in order to be at our best. And so a part of that culture is bringing out like the letting people be creative and encouraging that and saying, hey, this is a place we welcome. We want your creativity. It's that psychological safety, that group trust. And without it, I mean, people aren't going to be creative. Like we've probably all have examples of situations where, you've been in a group where somebody shot down your ideas or and you're like, okay, I'm good. Never mind. Like, and you just sort of stop sharing or you stop engaging. And in a culture of creativity, it's an environment where people are encouraged to bring that. They're like, yes, let's look at this at a different angle. And in this Venn diagram that's in the book, these are the 3 elements that the teams need. This is what the culture needs in order to foster creativity. So the team needs to have a clear sense of purpose, like what are we doing together? Why do we exist? Why do we meet? Which sometimes teams can't answer that question. Um, they need to have strong team dynamics. So they need to be able to trust each other, communicate well, and be able to engage in some healthy conflict, particularly this type of conflict called creative abrasion, which is where we can disagree around the work, around concepts, about the ideas, but we're not disagreeing due to personality or identity, because that's never helpful. And then the last one is the team creative process, which we talked about a few minutes ago with those 4 stages, that everyone on the team needs to know the process, know how to use it. And that circle is the area that I see teams struggle with the most because they didn't even know there could be a process for creativity. And so most of my work ends up being in that circle.
I'm
But
not I'm not surprised.
yeah.
Yeah. That is such a, when you hear things like the creative process, trust the process, it's just too hard for people to pin it down.
Mhm.
Do you find that you're helping people create a process or reveal a process they already have or some combo of it?
Mostly, so I typically teach them the creative problem solving process, the clarify, ideate, develop, implement that we just talked about. And most of them have never heard of that. But then
Okay.
once they see it, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I have done this before.
Okay.
So some of it is just codifying what we already do.
Yes. Yes. Okay. We've got a question in the chat from Joey. He says, is this book for leaders of teams or members of teams or leaders of team leaders? And
I
I
think,
would add, or all of the above.
yes. Sorry, Joey, did you want to expand? You looked like you're about to say something. No, okay. Yeah, I would say, yeah, all of the above. I think it's if you're in a leadership role and you want your team to be creative or the people you're working with to be creative, then I definitely recommend the book. And it can also be something that everyone on the team reads because I think it's just like when everybody has the same information, that can be really empowering. It can kind of speed up the learning process and speed up the implementation process. So that would be my recommendation.
Awesome. By the way, if you have questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. I also want to remind you that we are asking you if it fits your budget to please pick up a copy of Amy's book today. One of the things that happens is when we band together and we get books in the same tight time period, it gives a little bump to Amy's Amazon listing, and it tells Amazon, "Ooh, this is a let's pay attention. Let's pay attention to this book." So we want to give a bump today. And of course, we also want to leave reviews, and I will talk to you about that in a little bit yet. Please put in the chat if you've picked up a copy because there we go. Simone, thank you, Simone. Thank you, Kathy. This is what we love to see. We really appreciate it. If you don't need it, someone you know needs it, is what I always say. It's got to be someone who needs it. KP, I'm so happy you have your copy and you're loving it. Um, if you have a question again, let us know. Amy, let's do another excerpt. You got another one?
Sure. Yeah, I have one more. Um, Actually going to read the most of the last chapter.
Okay, yeah, we everybody is riveted. So don't worry about saying too much. And also shout out to Irina who ordered from her local bookstore, which I love. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone who's buying a book and who's read it. And there are people here who've already written reviews, and I'm so grateful. I really appreciate this, all of you, this whole community. Yeah, this, I will say, these last 3 weeks of the launch have been a lot of fun. All right, last chapter, chapter 9 for humanity. I went to an amazing but unusual school for my PhD. There were no grades because grades decrease learning. There were no deadlines because we were adults and could set our own damn schedules. The expectation, the requirement was that your work, your writing, and your research was about doing good in the world. At Antioch University, we were gifted t-shirts with a quote from the founder, Horace Mann: "Be afraid to die until you have won some victory for humanity." I'm not sure I will ever reach that aspiration, but I think about it frequently. It was top of mind on a warm June day, sitting on an airplane in Atlanta. Several years ago, I was invited to Mayo Clinic to lead a full-day creativity training for a group of their leaders. Given my mom's experience with Mayo, which you read about in chapter 1, it felt quite profound to have the privilege to work with them. I poured my heart into ensuring the program was top-notch, relevant, and meaningful to the 20 leaders I would be working with. I had been really nervous about teaching leaders at Mayo Clinic about deliberate creativity. Imposter syndrome reared its ugly head, and I started questioning why they wanted to learn from me. What did I have to offer to the best hospital in the world? There were more experienced creativity trainers and researchers than me. I wanted to do a really good job. I wanted to be good. I wanted to wow them. As the day arrived, I was getting more nervous. Then I had a big aha moment in an unexpected place. I sat at the gate for my flight from Atlanta, Georgia to Rochester, Minnesota, and heard the airline staff announce that it was time to board. At that moment, I realized I needed to use the bathroom, but I did not have time. It was a small plane and boarding would be quick, so I decided to just use the bathroom on the plane. Yes, I was that person. My seat was in row 1, and as luck would have it, the only bathroom was in the back. I dropped my backpack in my seat and walked down the aisle. There were only a few other people on the plane, but I was blocked by an elderly couple who boarded early. They were leaning over their seats and rummaging through their things. I could not see what they were doing. After a minute or two, I said, "Is there anything I can help you with?" The woman barked an order at the man. This is how I knew they were married. Then she turned to me and politely said, "I'm sorry, we'll be just another minute." At that moment, I saw in her seat a box with a brown neoprene case and clear tubing running up to her face. They had been trying to untangle her oxygen tank. I wanted to send her all the empathy and calming vibes I could. I put my hand on her shoulder and said, "There's no rush. Take your time." A few minutes later, they were settled, and I continued down the aisle. When I came out of the bathroom, the small plane was nearly full, and the aisle was blocked with passengers stowing their luggage. As I watched, I saw several oxygen tanks being carried down the aisle and other contraptions I did not recognize. There were more medical devices on this flight than any other flight I had ever been on. I realized at least half of these passengers were flying across the country to seek help from Mayo Clinic. When I got to my seat, I thought about all the passengers. I thought about the couple I waited behind in the aisle. Before we boarded, there had been a woman in the gate area talking on the phone about her recent cancer diagnosis. Another young woman had a 30-second seizure, and a couple of people rushed over to help. When she came to, she laughed it off and said, "Well, I'm good now. That's my one for the day." I felt the significance of my upcoming work with Mayo. I still felt nervous about the program the following day. Then suddenly, I felt a wash of gratitude and a surprising calmness rush over me. My eyes filled with tears. It hit me. This was not about me. This was not about me being good or impressing anyone. This was not even about the 20 leaders who were going to spend a full day with me learning about creativity and innovation. This was about all the people on that flight. This was about the 1.3 million people Mayo serves each year. This was about the 8 billion people on our planet who might benefit from a new procedure or practice invented at Mayo. Innovation is not about us. It's not about the accolades or rewards or getting our name on the patent. It is about serving others. It is about changing lives and doing good in the world. When we focus too much on ourselves, our work is not as strong or impactful. When we focus on serving others, it leads us to profound results. If you keep in mind who you are serving, it can keep you motivated and focused on innovation. You might not be in a field where the changes you make are the difference between life and death, but in some way, your work is about improving others' lives. Nearly all of what we create, design, and invent is about improving something for someone somewhere. Who are you serving? What do they need? What is a problem that you and your team are facing that you can solve through collaborative creativity? Creativity is about identifying problems and finding solutions and doing that over and over again. Now you know how to lead your team to be deliberate creatives. You know how to cultivate your team purpose, facilitate strong team dynamics, and lead the team creative process. Now comes the hard part. It's easy to read a book. Despite what I said in chapter 1, reading this book will not change your team. It will not make your team more creative except on one condition. You do the work. You work on building your skills. You work on building your skills to lead your team on this journey to be a deliberate, creative team. Lead your team through the exercises in this book. Share the concepts with them. Work together to learn to be more creative. Learning together builds team trust and cohesion, and you already know how important that is. When your team gets clear on its purpose, builds strong team dynamics together, and everyone knows and uses the creative process, then creativity will flourish. That creativity will lead to innovative results so that you and your team can positively impact your clients, customers, communities, and the world. I'm excited to see what your team creates, designs, and invents. We need your brilliance.
Yes, that is also no perfect. It's so inspiring, and the bookends with Mayo just make me so happy. It's so good, and I hope you can see. I'm gonna read this comment from Joey. Um, Joey says, "You captured the magic of Rochester, Minnesota, and Mayo with the story of that flight and the community it creates, and it never ends. There's always another flight with another patient."
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Wow. It's so the writing's so good. And
Oh, thank you.
it because it's first of all, it's very clear. We can follow, we understand you're taking us on that journey, but it's tight, it's compassionate, it fits your personality. But it here's the thing that I personally love is it stirs our souls.
Hmm.
It stirs our souls.
Hmm.
And that is good writing. That is good writing when we can do that. Oh, so good.
Wow.
Um, if y'all have questions, you are free to ask Amy. We do have a little time for questions. I want to say one thing before I have more questions for Amy, but I want to say something. Here's what I want you to do. Here's the second thing I've been teasing tonight. So some of you have already written a review. Thank you so much, Karobi. I know you wrote a review. If you have, if we appreciate you, fantastic. But I want to give you, we're going to do something fun when we're done talking with Amy. And we'll actually, I think we might be able to do it before we end at 8 o'clock tonight. What I want you to do, and Laura is going to help you out. She's going to give you a link. I don't want you to do it right now. Just pause because we're still going to ask Amy what I want to get you prepared. We're all going to go leave a review for Amy's book tonight. We're not going to say, let's do this later. We all have good intentions. We're actually going to go do it. And I want to tell you a couple little hints. Reviews do not have, this is not a professional review, okay? You don't have to say a lot, all right? In the chat, people have been writing down lines and insights that mean something to them. You can literally go in this chat and pull your favorite things right out of there and put it in a review. And you can also, by the way, amend reviews later if you do, if you finish reading the book and you want to say more, you can. So we're going to do today, when we're done talking with Amy, Amy can stick around if she wants, but sometimes authors like to leave during that part. And we're going to sit here together and write the reviews before we leave today. So I just wanted to tell you that is part of our agenda today, because this is a massive help to Amy. There's nothing that helps an author more besides telling other people to buy it than leaving a review. Okay? All right, Amy. So I got my little pitch. I'm so passionate. I want to get that.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
I want to get that done for you. So this is something I've never asked you. Um,
Oh.
why do you love your work?
Mm.
Because I want to ask you because you so clearly do. It just lights you up. You can never you could talk for the next 3 hours about it, I'm positive. So why do you love
Good.
it so much?
Except I do sort of hit a wall about 10:30 p.m. and I just no, just
Oh,
teasing.
okay. If you started early in the
I'm
day,
just teasing.
go all day.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah.
Why do I love it so much? I think, oh, there's so many pieces to this. So when I was in high school, I was that friend that when somebody said, "Oh no, I'm not creative," I was like, "What? Yes, you are. You are creative." And I would get really emphatic and frustrated with them, and I didn't know anything about creativity research, but I knew that it wasn't about your ability to draw, and there's all these different expressions of it. And I don't know why I knew that, but um, so in some ways, there's some reason that it's been in me my whole life. But I also think that it's so fun to see when people like the light bulb clicks and this negative ideas they've had in their head about how they couldn't be creative, like that just sort of melts away and they start seeing this potential and this possibility. And I really, like, deep in my soul, believe that we as humans have the capacity to solve every problem on this planet, most of the problems we've caused. So we also have a responsibility, perhaps. But I think two things get in our way. Well, there's many things, but one of them is our, I don't know if inability is the right word or if it's unwillingness, but that we don't collaborate enough. And I think we also just, our creativity is often blocked. And if we could be more collaborative and more creative, we can innovate and we can solve every problem on this planet. There's this little story in the book where I was watching this film that a friend of mine created called Where There Once Was Water. And it's about the water crisis in California. This was several years ago that I watched the film. And at the end of it, I was just struck that we have solutions for this problem. Like there are plenty of solutions. Some of them are really unique and innovative. And it's not a matter of that we don't have enough creativity. It was a matter of just being able to like work together to implement these things. And yeah, so I just feel kind of vacillating between hopeful and frustrated, but trying to channel that hopefulness and helping more organizations and teams and people be more innovative.
I love that. I love that. I need to read this comment from Trevor. Trevor says, bought a copy, read it, finished it, acted on it, told a client, and sent them a copy, left a review, featured Amy on our podcast, March newsletter focus, and can't wait for the Audible version. Trevor.
Oh, Trevor's been amazing, y'all.
Like MVP Trevor, but I want to just highlight Trevor's amazing. And that's possible because Dr. Amy Climer wrote an absolutely must-read, terrific book that can do all that. Like, so I just want to like this. Yes, first of all, model Trevor, and it's a dang good book.
Thanks,
Dang
AJ.
good book.
And thank you, Trevor. Trevor gets credit for posting the very first review on Amazon.
Woo!
That's right.
That should be a thing. We should make that in our community, who gets first, and then maybe we can be a little competitive about
There
it.
you go. I like it.
Yeah. First. Um, okay. We do have one question, and then I have a couple more small questions for you. Karobi says, what's your advice to creating a creative team within a broader culture that doesn't value it? Great question.
Move the team. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Oh, I think it's so hard. I said somewhere in the book that, creativity, being creative requires the willingness to be a little rebellious. And I think that there's sort of a couple angles you could take. One is just like do it anyway, right? Because if that team itself is willing to, learn what to do and engage in being creative, they actually can produce some results without, the blessing from above, whatever. And, obviously this varies by context, but there's still a lot they can do. Um, and then the other thing I think is there a way to teach the broader culture what creativity really is and why it matters? And so one of the things that I hear a lot from potential clients is, okay, I want our team to be innovative, but I actually don't want to focus on creativity at all. Because they think that they look at creativity as like being really fluffy and, rainbows and hearts and crayons and then like innovation's the serious stuff. And I mean, I don't really get too caught up into it. I teach them a little bit about it, and then I say, well, you can use whatever word you want. It doesn't matter. And so in some cases, the approach might be, well, let's just use the word innovation or yeah, I feel like so often there's so many myths around what creativity is and how it works. And part of it might be tying it into what's measured. So is it money? Is it retention? Is it, whatever that thing is, if you can connect it to what they're actually counting and what they care about, then I think you'll have a lot more success with like getting the buy-in if that's needed.
That's great advice. And I've got one more question. It's from KP.
Is that
And
helpful?
Katie asks, how would you categorize or talk about this book as it relates to individuals or impromptu teams, as in teams that gather on a one time or limited time basis?
I think that, yeah, it's interesting. If you're only gathering once, then I think then in that case, what's so important is like who's facilitating it. And so, KP, do you facilitate in your work? I'm trying to remember.
Sometimes. Yep.
So
Sometimes.
if you're facilitating, it doesn't actually matter if they know anything about being creative because you can just set up all the structures so that that team is able to be creative and they might not even, I mean, you could tell them like, hey, this is what we're doing, but they don't need to necessarily understand the bigger picture. So here's an example of what I mean by a structure or process. Um, Very often when leaders want a team to like brainstorm or generate new ideas, they'll say, okay, we got this issue. Let's brainstorm for a few minutes and see what we can come up with. And then people start sharing ideas. But let's say you have a team of 10 people. It's always the same three or four people that share ideas, and they always start first. And yep, I see the head nods. And but what if you change the whole structure so that that wouldn't even happen? And you said, okay, we're going to generate some ideas for this particular challenge. Everyone take out some post-it notes and a pen, and we're going to turn on a timer for 3 minutes. Write as many ideas as you can for 3 minutes, one idea per post-it note. Now, in 3 minutes, you'll get at least three ideas per person, sometimes five or six. And then you just go around and share all those ideas. First of all, in 3 minutes, you've got 30 ideas. And then second, those ideas are going to be way more diverse. You're going to have more like input instead of just those three or four more vocal people. And you've done something that's fostered creativity without anyone really needing to understand it. Does that make sense, KP?
Yeah. Awesome. So
Yeah,
I
and
think
there's
structure and setup, like really setting up the culture and having a clear end game for that one time or maybe limited time team. Love it. Thank
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of activities and examples in the book that are similar to that. So you can kind of lead them through this whole process. Yeah.
So we're gonna close out and then we're gonna do reviews. Okay. So just so we're clear, don't leave when I say, after I say thank you to Amy, because we're gonna do reviews. If you already did one, of course, I'm not holding you here. You can hang with us if you want to talk about reviews. Um, Amy, this is the question that I always ask, and it's my favorite question. What's the change you want to see in the world through your book?
For my book or like
Through your book,
or
because
through
your book exists, what is the change you hope to see in the world?
I think it's a little bit what I was talking about before. Like, what if every team had the capacity to be creative and we could solve just so many problems or address things in new ways so that maybe future problems didn't even arise. Um, I and I also think there's this piece about creativity that it's very innate in us as humans. I mean, just like wherever you're at, look around. Like everything you see, except for Laura, I know you have a ton of plants, minus the plants and Joey. Everything else, like we created, we did this. And it's like so deep in our DNA to be creative. And I think that something happens when we block that. And then I don't even know. I don't know the research on this, but I do think bad things happen to us individually when we don't allow our creativity to come out. Yeah. And so that's my hope is that individually and collectively we are able to be more creative because I think we are better humans because of it.
I love that. It's beautiful. Everybody, our next Monday night reading is April 7th with Dr. Sunita Shah with her book Defy the Power of No in a World That Demands Yes. Amy, thank you so much for being here. This was a fantastic Monday night reading.